Greetings and warm welcomes. Come on in and make yourself at home. My name is Timothy Halloran, and the date is Wednesday, June 12th, 2019. It is a pleasure to be connecting to you, my brothers, sisters, like minds. Honestly, I don't always know who I'm talking to or if I'm just alone in a room talking to myself. But whoever is out there, it is a pleasure to be playing the part of the message delivery mailman for you today. In these videos, we're talking about the nature of the times, and we're focusing on mid to the end of June 2019. Now, normally I like to do my videos outside, where I can be a little bit more in the flow and connected to nature with a little bit more clarity and space. But you know what? We're celebrating Christmas in July this week, so we've got a nice, warm, toasty fire. And for those who don't know what I mean, we're talking about a full moon in Sagittarius coming up this next week, Monday, June 17th. Now, it also just happens to be completely downpouring here in Savannah, so that also plays a part in my being inside. And it is an appropriate downpour. As we are entering our next set of eclipses, the next new moon will be a solar eclipse in Cancer. So yes, we're already starting to unwind and come into the eclipse portal wormhole, where so much change, so much transitions, and indeed emotional upheaval and release is a theme that we'll be talking about today. Indeed, we have Mars conjoined the moon's north node, soon to be joined with Mercury, opposite to Saturn and Pluto. So there is a lot that can be going on the inside. Yes, we may be feeling the pot being stirred, maybe in our belly beneath the surface, and there being a huge opportunity for us to explore, to open up and surrender into new possibilities that can be bringing us into new ways of interacting with the world, interacting in our relationships, and just who we are and what our purpose in life and the world is. So there is a lot going on in our world, indeed, and this is a powerful time of change. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, this opening up, this undoing and unwinding, this theme of uncertainty is certainly kicking off this last weekend, as the Sun was opposite to Jupiter and square to Neptune last weekend and the last few days. And in the next week, Venus will oppose Jupiter and square to Neptune, Sunday the 23rd to Monday the 24th. And so the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, are really being expanded and again unfolding, dissolving. Particularly the mid-degrees of mutable signs, 17 to 18 degrees of the mutable signs, really being affected by this Neptune-Jupiter square. This Jupiter square Neptune is forming through this time, will be exact coming up on the 16th this next week. And this will be occurring exactly with the full moon. The following day on the 17th, that full moon is joined Jupiter and square Neptune. So this Jupiter-Neptune square, one of the main themes of 2019, as we've been talking about, is the dissolving of old philosophies, ontologies, belief systems, and orientations. It is a third quarter square, which involves letting go of the older traditional understanding, religious programming, philosophical advice, and feedback that we've received in the past, that is no longer serving our future unfolding, our connection to nature, and a healthy orientation to ourselves in relationships and to life in general. So what I've been encouraging people to do is not to necessarily know everything. My goodness, with Neptune, the planet of uncertainty, stationing retrograde on Friday the 21st, this is a period where we need to be trusting this flow of life. We need to let go, and there is also this opportunity to wash away the old, forgiving the past, returning to our innocence, a deeper sense of our own identity, of our own spiritual truth. And so there is this need to really let go. And again, there is this opening or unfolding, similar to the flowers in springtime, unfolding into their essence. And simultaneously, there can be this real theme of uncertainty. So we're really initiating at this time this exploration of creative identity. And we may be asking all these questions. Sun in Gemini, square Neptune. What is the point? What to say? What is the work that's required? How are we showing up in our work associates, in our partnerships? And we are doing this exploration in order to come into a deeper level of purpose or a deeper level of identity. And sometimes the feelings, which we'll talk about, the feelings of exhaustion or boredom or frustration. I mean, this Mars on the North Node today can be very itchy. It can be very restless. Yeah, it can kind of come off as being more bitchy or more complaining or more sensitive. But the real key with this Mars and Mercury in Cancer is, even if it seems inconvenient or it seems small, to really honor those emotions, to allow it to invite us into this exploration of creative purpose, as well as how we're doing relationships. As the next planet to oppose Jupiter and square Neptune is Venus, the 23rd to 24th. So what are we doing in our relationships? How are we sharing? We're opening the door to new and creative ways of showing up in relationship and the world. And so there are both physical as well as philosophical explorations that can be going on. And you know what? This is a time where we can tune into that sense of magic, even though there is a theme of uncertainty. We may not know where the road is leading or where we'll be 10 or 30 years from now. We don't have to pretend that we will know. This is a need to be honest about our own uncertainty, about our own level of not knowing everything. That's absolutely key. Even if we're having emotional upheavals that we don't totally know everything, the key is to be honest with what we're feeling, what we understand, what we don't understand, and to have these necessary conversations. This can allow for these new potentials of finding meaning in our relationship, or how we're showing up with our friends, or how we're working together to form in a deeper, more fulfilling, and more actually bridged with the world that we live in. Our current day and age, where so many of these outdated philosophical beliefs, for example, what makes a good or bad boy, what makes a good or bad lady, what our parents taught us was right or wrong, it can oftentimes lead to these dead ends. And this is not an uncommon scenario. This is extraordinarily common in this particular point in time. The tail end of the age of Pisces, there are so many confused spiritual beliefs, misunderstandings of morality, how we're supposed to show up together to the world, and we have to make sure that we're not overly self-sacrificing, that we're sweeping any of our needs to the side, that we're trying to be the good boy or good girl, at the cost of our inner child, at the cost of our own inner animal, our own body. We are all of these different levels and dimensions, and for too long, misguided spirituality has informed us to prejudice against various dimensions in ourself. That's why at this time it is so critically important to embrace our emotions and emotional body as informing us, even if it seems inconvenient. As soon as we label those inconvenient emotions or feelings as being too childish or too bitchy or too inconvenient or emotional or taking up too much space, we are now prejudicing against a part of ourselves. This is absolutely a time where there can be emotional triggers, where there can be overreactions, where there can be unconscious volcanic release. This is Mars opposite to Pluto. These emotions can come out of nowhere. They can be unexpected and shocking. We may think that we have everything together and I've done everything right and this is this, that, or the other thing and I'm taken care of and I'm doing the right thing. And then our long forgotten, suppressed inner child and his or her experiences going way back to childhood, ex-partners, ex-lovers, our parents' upbringing, starts to speak up considerably loudly. Hey, what about me? You forgot about a part of yourself. It seems all hunky-dory, but hello, I'm really itchy, or I'm uncomfortable, or I have unexpressed or unmet needs. Now again, this may even catch us by surprise. It's just like, wow, I thought everything was fine. I thought this was who I am. I thought this was what we were doing together, and then all of a sudden these emotions. And it can be little tiny things on the surface. Do not judge the emotional triggers for the surface level experience of it, okay? Someone throwing a temper tantrum because they were served the wrong food when they went through the fast food order line, that emotional temper tantrum is not because the person got the wrong food. There's something else going on. This is where we have the opportunity to play the soul detective in ourselves and our relationships for others by not fearing, prejudicing, or shaming emotional triggers, emotional release, or emotional processing. It's not always convenient, and conveniency is a sham. Conveniency is deceptive. Conveniency is I shouldn't be feeling these things. I should be fine, and so I'm going to ignore them. I shove them to the side, and it makes the volcanic eruptions worse. It makes us fragmented people where we're identifying with the good, and then the shadow becomes separated but still exists. And then other people see it and we don't, and we think that it's their fault because they're judging us for being mean, because we don't know that we're being mean, because meanness is shooting out of the sides, because there's an unmet part of ourself trying to speak up through his or her voice. So there's really a need to do this mutable sign exploration, to not judge, to not jump to conclusions, to not put that superficial type of morality that unfortunately a huge part of mainstream religion in the New Age movement really encourages. Oh, you didn't manifest your perfect life with positive manifestation? Well, it's because you didn't do it perfectly, and now we berate ourselves as if we're God and have complete control of the universe. Life is much more complex than this. There are many, many more levels happening. And so this is about having a communion with our own deeper self. Now, this is the gift of this full moon in Sagittarius, is that we can commune with that higher self. We can get this intuitive sense that, you know what, I do not know everything, Jupiter square Neptune, but I do know that this is life. I do know that this is taking me somewhere. That's how to do this Jupiter square Neptune. There is this leap of faith. There is this trusting to the divine flow of life, that lazy man's river of unfolding, which is Neptune. And there is a need to honor that divine flow, that we are being led somewhere, that we can open up to new dimensions, to new possibilities that can improve our situation. And that requires this very fine balance of expressing our emotions, Cancer, doing the work, deconditioning tradition, unplugging those old standards, Capricorn, in order to explore our own philosophies and understanding of life, the mutable signs, and to be even come into a new level of spaciousness, sovereignty, peace, and stability. Uranus transiting through Taurus. So there is so much incredible opportunity at this time, and it goes hand in hand with that experience of, man, there is so much going on. There's so much to feel, so much to process, so much to address and change. And the key here is to not allow ourselves to get too overwhelmed by it, to not have to have every single little detail figured out, to be practical, and yet to be humble. Humility is such an important virtue at this time, as nobody's perfect, nobody knows everything. We all make mistakes, and mistakes are feedback. They're information. Our emotional body is feedback. It's information. All of this feedback, all of this information is our friend and our ally and can serve us if we are courageous enough to embrace the wholeness of life, even when we do not understand everything totally. Now, what I would say the bottom line of this full moon in Sagittarius is this full moon in Sag conjoined Jupiter, is this real gift? Is this light at the end of the tunnel? It can be this buoyancy, this optimism, and here I like to think of Jupiter as being that sense that life is an adventure. I like to describe that feeling that ideally we had as children, that when we grow up we can be and do anything. When I grow up, I'll be an astronaut. When I grow up, I'll be a scuba diver. There's always something to discover on the other horizon. And this is a wonderful time to be traveling, whether it be physically or philosophically. That sense of expanse, that sense of openness, that there's something to discover on the other horizon. That can be leading us forward, okay? And so what is happening with this mutable full moon in Sag? And again, pay attention to 17, 18 degrees of the mutable signs. Well, now we have Mercury and Mars, 21 to 22 degrees of the cardinal signs, opposite to Pluto and Saturn, which is bringing up our emotions as well as our past. And there can be a lot of releasing of our past story. Our past story is being informed to us through our emotional body. And I would therefore say that this full moon is the necessary exploration of truth, to be on that adventure, to surrender and open up, to not need to know everything. So that way we have the opportunity to rewrite our own story. We can change the story. We can change the old reels, the old tapes. That's the work, and that's the opportunity that is happening at this time. Now, the work is happening from two ends with that Cancer-Capricorn polarity. Mars, Mercury on the moon's north node in Cancer, today through these next couple weeks, is holding open the doorway for us all to come into healthier, more meaningful connection with life, our relationships, and ourselves. Cancer is our own emotional core. It is our self-identity. It is our ego. It is our own personal story. And is our story a problem? No. Is it an illusion? No. Is it informing us from the inside out in terms of who we are? Yes. Our past story and experience has shaped us to be who we are. And we are co-authors of this story. We have authorship. We can take the pen and now we are writing future chapters. So we embrace the past, everything it's informing us of, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we are able to embrace the positive things from the past, even coming out of the good, bad, or ugly. The good, bad, and ugly has shaped us into being the unique, gifted, and talented soul that we are. And that's part of the reframing and the retelling of the story, to change the story into one of hope, inspiration, upliftment, to forgive and wash away the old dramas or interactions or relationships that are no longer serving us through the telling of the story through our emotional body. So the absolute core need of this time, Mars, Mercury on the North Node, is to speak up. We need to have communication. Now, what is Mars in Cancer? The evolutionary intention of Mars in Cancer on the North Node right now is to find healthy emotional support so we can show up as ourselves, share ourselves as we are, and be met by those who can meet us where we're at. Okay, safe space to do emotional processing, healing conversations with those who can hear us, who are able to embrace us and able to embrace our emotions, whether they're good, bad, or ugly. Those souls who cannot hear us when we're going through a bad day or having a bad experience fundamentally cannot be our friends. They do not provide that type of emotional support. We all need that type of emotional support. It is a core human need. And guess what? It is one of the most overlooked human needs in this current day and age. What do you think a huge part of that Saturn, Pluto on the moon's south node work is doing, therefore? the necessary transformation of older, outdated cultural forms, norms, and expectations that gets in the way of safe space, healthy relationships, and healthy ways of showing up, interacting, and sharing our true, authentic inner selves with others. Well, do you think that the vulnerable emotional communication of our deepest needs has always been invited and encouraged by our world, traditions, or societies? Hell no. Right? That word patriarchy comes to mind often with this Cancer-Capricorn polarity. And it is typically men who probably struggle the most with this type of vulnerable emotional expression, because traditionally men are the least permitted to be vulnerable in this way, because in the past we've considered emotional vulnerability to be a form of weakness. We used to call those highly unstable and emotional, all over the place people lunatics, Luna, referring to the moon, the ruler of Cancer, the emotional body. It's a prejudice against the divine feminine, okay? A long outstanding one. So this whole, we're all being so whiny and complaining and bitchy, we need to make sure that we're not taking our anger and misprojecting it onto people, or unloading the whole tool bag of arsenal and nuclear bombs onto others. This cannot be a blame and point the fingers time. It will end in disaster. It will end in copping out, denial, bypassing the necessary work. It's more complicated than that. It's going to be much more like this. You're going to have to express your emotions to people, and it's not going to be totally easy, and they're going to have to express their emotions back, and there may not always be that clear, instant fix, instant win, jackpot, get out of jail free card. No. And we don't want that, because it's not real life, it doesn't help anybody, and it does not actually give us the creative solutions to improve our lives. It gives us another delusion, it gives us another cop-out, it just gives us, again, more deception. Okay, Neptune stationing retrograde is an opportunity for us to explore and discover where there may have been these blind spots or deceptive actions or beliefs or understanding going on. And these blind spots happen in ourselves. It's going to be natural that sometimes there's more than what's going on that meets the eye. And okay, we need to address these more hidden, more complex, more murky areas. All right. And again, this is a basic human need, and yet it is really a fundamental issue in our world, how difficult it may be to find that support group, to find those friends, to find those family members. This is the opportunity to do the work, and I'm not saying it's easy work. We may need to go out and get a therapist, and we may need to earn more money to pay for that therapy. We may need to establish our own support group because there aren't enough out there already, or there may not be one in our immediate vicinity. And we may really be experiencing that type of starvation of I'm alone, I'm misunderstood, nobody's out there for me, I've been doing all of this by myself, nobody understands what I've been doing. It is the call to action. Mars on the North Node, our emotional body, our inner child is the call to action. That means we get to put out the call. These are my needs. This is what I need to be an okay person. And we put out that call. And by putting out that call, we find the others. We find our soul tribe. Our soul family recognizes us. I understand you. I have the same needs. I've gone through the same struggle. And now we can come together and support one another. This is a time where we need to go there. We need to speak up. We need to have these conversations, even if it doesn't seem right, even if it doesn't seem easy. We have to speak up now, because it's not going to go away. If we try to repress or deny our feelings at this time, they're guaranteed to erupt later or fall apart. Now again, this is where these old programs are falling away. That sense of what gets in the way of I don't have permission to stand up for myself, or this doesn't seem like I can express this need. Those are the programs that need to dissolve. And on the other hand, what does not seem fair or right for us, as immature, as small, as little, as tedious, as technical as it may seem, we do need to voice these things. Now is the time to speak up. And now is the time where we can get on track with real equality, real balance, okay? So don't put on the back burner where you felt it wasn't fair or balanced or equal. Now's the time for sharing. Now's the time for speaking our truth. And in this case, there can be so much healing, so much liberation. We just saw asteroid Pallas Athena, station direct, square the moon's nose, on asteroid Lilith also, in the sign of Libra. This really getting back to the core of natural balance, natural justice, natural equality. We see Jupiter in a semi-sextile to Saturn. Chiron is in a semi-sextile to Uranus. There is a huge opportunity for tremendous amounts of healing and improvement to take place if we're willing to speak up and if we're willing to do this work, both the inner emotional work, and this is also bringing us into how can we take care of ourselves. Ending dependency, okay? Ending unconscious clinginess. Ending unconscious trauma response, and then depending on other people to fill the shoes of our mom, our dad, etc., etc. No, we are our own moms, we are our own dads, and by coming into that inner council between inner mother, child, inner father, and child, and this is the conversation we're having right now. The necessary conversation is us having the inner dialogue between inner parent, inner child. Giving permission, Capricorn, to our inner child, Cancer, to speak and emote. That's the inner work. Allowing those emotions to inform us. Even sadness, depression, anger, frustration. Jet fuel, symptoms of healing. Fuel to the fire, okay? Is inspiring the Capricorn structural changes. How are we going to earn money? How are we going to live? Where we're going to live? How we're going to do our business? How we're going to do our societal interaction? That's the work. Now, in embracing this work, there can be so many hidden blessings. There can be so many incredibly rich opportunities, but they're so new. They're so different from everything we've been taught, everything we've been told by our culture, our world, our parents. It is so outlandishly different from our world, traditions, and history that we may not even know that it exists at this time. That is the potential to open up and break through, liberate in incredible ways. We're seeing asteroid Vesta, who just entered the sign of Taurus June 9th, coming up to Uranus at the end of this month on the 23rd. There being a capacity to really devote ourselves to new intuitive ideas of living that are simpler, healthier, more natural, more self-sovereign, more self-resourceful. So these are times where we can be having these conversations, doing this restructuring in such a way to enter revolutionary new ways of being stable, of being connected in ourselves. To have that connection to our own higher self. And Uranus and Vesta are also joining asteroids Hanuman and asteroid Shiva. This theme of devotion to space and the space to connect with our higher self so that way we can be devoted to our values, our truth, our mission. And this is where we unfold into our gifts. Our own capacity to go out there in the world and share our resources after finding that connection and after finding that stability within ourselves. But we may not be able to do it alone. We do need that feedback. We do need that connection. Every human being needs emotional safe space, needs connection, needs group support. That also means more than just one person in your life. We need multiple people supporting us. Now's the opportunity to initiate that call. This next June 18th to 19th, Mercury joined with Mars in Cancer, opposite to Pluto, Saturn, and the Moon in Capricorn. June 19th, June 18th, a time of upheaval, a time when we can be feeling this tug of war between the past tradition and our own inner child that is paving the way to the future, okay? Allow for this tug of war to be the evolutionary mechanism that we can embrace to bring in positive change. And then just a couple days later, June 21st, summer solstice. Sun enters the sign of Cancer, Neptune stations retrograde on the same day, okay? Next solar eclipse in Cancer. So we're continuing this swan dive into ourselves, into our emotional body, the story being informed from within us, the emotions that are connected to the past. Embrace your story. It is a part of your evolutionary journey. It's a part of your spiritual journey. Embrace your ego. It is your own inner child informing you from the inside out of who you are and what your truer needs and where they are leading you. And so by embracing this inner emotional journey, this is the time where we can initiate new paradigms. We are changing our quality of living to embrace what matters more than where others and our outdated world has misled us. And this is going to take us full circle. We're retreating back inside. We're going back to the past. We're releasing and forgiving the past as it is simultaneously informing us of the gifts of who we are, being shaped by the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all a part of shaping us into the gift, into the being, into the teacher that we are. That way we can go out into the world with a renewed sense of confidence because we're getting the emotional support that we're now finding we need. We're going out in the world with a renewed and regained sense of stability by creating that spaciousness, that container to go inside and be inspired from the inside out by our own sense of creative purpose. And so allow this reset to happen. Slow down. Stop overworking. Stop blaming yourself that you're too exhausted or too emotional to keep up with all the work. All of that is being left to the past. We have to allow this emotional information to allow us to readjust. And all of the current uncertainty, the technical details, we don't have it figured out, there is not that perfect solution yet, that's okay. That is the water under the bridge, okay? The physical will find itself into formation as we are rebirthing our identity and our own emotional needs from the inside out. This is the work of the healer, the high priestess, the divine feminine. This is how we get back on track, and we are in the thick of it now. Now is the time for us to have this deep existential reflection, even to have a deep existential breakdown. It is a part of this death and rebirth of the paradigm in which we are living. And indeed, this paradigm also affects ourselves, our family, what's very close to home is also being affected by all these dynamics. And as we begin close to home, all of these dynamics will begin their domino and trickle down effect. So I am very, very much wishing you absolutely all the best. By the way, since we're in the midst of Sagittarius, full moon, sun still in Gemini, if you have any questions, whether it be about your birth chart, astrology in general, spiritual questions of any and all nature, you can join my question and answer tier on my Patreon group, and every month I have a meeting with a bunch of people. We look at charts, we learn from one another. It's been really, really powerful healing work. So if you're interested in that and not going for the full chart reading, perhaps you'd be interested in that Patreon group. And stick around. I'm going to be releasing quite a bit for these eclipses that we're going into. I had a video come out last week about that Cancer-Capricorn Polarity. It goes very in-depth. Be sure to check that out. I'll have another one coming up in a few weeks. We're going to have an eclipse circle I'll be announcing in a few days, a support group that we'll be providing for those who need it while we're going through these times of change and emotional release. So I will be keeping in touch. And do remember that spark of magic. That inner child, that sense of adventure, that creative spark of joy, and maybe throw yourself a little bit of Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it may be in July.